Hello and welcome. My name is Gottfried Zimmermann. I'm a professor at Stuttgart Media University in Germany, and I want to present to you the personal user experience guidelines. These guidelines were developed within the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, called EIP-AHA, and there is an action group C2 on interoperability. And within this group, there was a working group on a personal user experience, which developed these guidelines. The guidelines were published early in 2018, and they're available on a website. If you search for PUX recommendations, you will find them. The guidelines are called Personal User Experience, PUX, Recommendations and Lessons Learned, and they are directed to manufacturers and developers of active and healthy aging solutions aiming for a personal user experience. So the guidelines are split in 5 groups of sets of guidelines. First, general recommendations. Second, development process. Third, applying standards. Fourth, privacy and security. And fifth, business model. And I want to go with you in a quick pace through all of these guidelines. There are in total 34 guidelines to give you an overview. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about what we think a personal user experience is. So we define it as a positive user experience for an individual user, and it should take into account the following: that the user experience is when the positive user experience is when the solution matches the user's goals, needs, and preferences. And we recognize that users may have different wishes, needs, and preferences. And also that this depends on the context of use, like the situation and the devices that users are using. When a system implements a personal user experience and supports it, then we talk about a PUX-enabled solution. And it involves that the user's wishes, preferences, and needs are recognized, and that the system can react to them and adjust to them. And there are lots of benefits if we do that. Users will find it easier to use the solution. They will have a better user experience, more joy of use, and they will make less errors. And we will also take care of users with disabilities and older users. And service providers will be more productive and make less errors. And manufacturers will spend less time and costs on the training of users and training of the service provider personnel. And it will also help them to comply with accessibility regulation. So this is a triple win situation for users, service providers, and manufacturers if they follow these guidelines. Now, the first group of guidelines is about our general recommendations. And the first one, 1.1, is make adaptable solutions, allow users to adapt your solution. So adaptable means that users can choose their settings, for example, can choose the font size or which services they want to use or contrast settings. It's up to the user to make that decision. Second, make adaptive solutions. If the system actively adapts to a user, allow the user to override the system's choices. So systems may make a guess about the user's preferred configuration, and they may propose it to the user, but the user should always be able to say yes or no and maybe do an undo of the proposed solution. If the system allows the user to change settings, then these changes should immediately take effect. So for example, if there is a slider with the font size, then the font size should immediately change even while the user drags the slider. So then the user can find the correct setting. If they have to wait until the effect comes into place, that's always bad and is a bad usability. Remember the user settings and adaptations means that once the user has set their preferred configuration, they don't need to do it again at the next session. And they don't need to do it again if they take a different device using the same system. So these settings should work across applications, even and across platforms. It's easy to fall in the trap of thinking about the users having certain kinds of disabilities, like here's a blind user, here is a user who has dementia or so, but it's much better and easier for system developers if we store the user's preferences rather than their disabilities. So this user requires a big font size, or this user requires a simplification of dialogues. And because disabilities don't really make clear what adaptations users need, there can be multiple ways to accommodate disabilities. But what's important is the user interfaces that people need and the preferences regarding that. And also we will comply with data regulation by doing so, the privacy. 1.6, do not stigmatize your users. That means that the solutions should look attractive and meaningful to everyone. We don't want to pigeonhole people and make them feel bad about their disability or their situation, because we want to sell products. Nobody wants to be pushed aside. Design simple and easy to use solution is really benefiting everybody. It should be a smooth and comfortable user experience, and it should include the whole life cycle of the solution. We call that customer's journey sometimes. It's about providing information, buying, installing and mounting, using, maintaining, updating, uninstalling, disposing and recycling if you have hardware. Now, design human-friendly technology means that people should feel comfortable with the technologies they're using. They should interact with technologies in a natural way, and it should be feeling like talking and dealing with humans rather than with technology, if possible. We should also provide information in different formats, sometimes even redundantly, and provide redundant navigational means. Think about users that are maybe not using the mouse, only the keyboard, or are using voice interaction and maybe screen readers, or using your system in different languages. Users don't like to have to remember things and learn it the hard way. They just want to see easily if an element is interactive, if they can click on it or not, or if it's touch sensitive. So use the patterns that usually are used for designing user interfaces and common widgets. We should also provide single sign-on for all applications. If our system involves multiple applications, then just sign on once, and then all other apps that belong to the system should be open as well. And we should also provide multiple means of logging in, not only password because some people have a hard time remembering passwords. There are other means that we can allow redundantly by face recognition or other biometrics. Okay, that was the first group of guidelines. Now the second set is about the development process. It's important to look into the user's needs, their real needs and their true expectations. And what we can do is we can have focus groups, interviews to find out about them, and then we can make personas that are short descriptions of like product typical users that we want to accommodate in our system. If we don't have the time and the resources to do intensive user research, we can use existing sets of personas, such as the one provided by CURE, the Center for Usability Research and Engineering. And once we have found out about the users, we should look into their habits, into their daily activities, into their preferences, needs, barriers that they encounter, and we should accommodate the system for that. And then if we have like portfolios of these users, we should focus on both, on the individual users and groups of users. And groups of users are presented by personas, and then still have contact with individual users to find out if that works well for them. We should allow for different ways of personalization. So some users may want to really configure the system on their own, exploring different configurations. Those are the more active users. Others may don't want to touch the system in any way because they are afraid of breaking it. So we propose to them maybe some solutions. And for others, it's actually good to let them choose between different settings like personas or so. Also, it's important to use an iterative development process. We want to follow a user-centered design. We want to find out about the needs. We specify through prototyping, and then we evaluate through user tests. It's important to validate in multiple ways. We recommend to do it in a triple way. First, technical validation. Second, relevant stakeholders should inspect this by inspecting software or by conducting user tests. And then we should also do real user tests in the lab and in the field. When we do the evaluation with users, we need to respect their rights on information and privacy. So we need to explain well why we're testing, what their rights are, and what we want to accomplish with that. And of course, conform to data privacy. We'll have a separate group on privacy issues, separate set of guidelines. And we should make our solutions responsive, meaning that they perform well on multiple devices, and you should know about how to do responsive web design and responsive design so that they show up on different screen sizes. Well, and we should also build modular solutions. If we have like systems that have multiple functionalities, then the user should be able to pick from them the set of functionalities they want to use, and we can assemble it in a way if it's modular so that it fits the user's needs. The third group of guidelines is about applying standards. In general, we want to use standards rather than reinvent the wheel. We want to avoid proprietary solutions that will benefit everybody. Think about the USB connector. You don't need to reinvent another connection type if USB works for you. Then if we're in different areas of the world and we market products in different areas, we need to think about the different relevant regulations and also sometimes sectorial regulations like in telecommunications or other fields. And we need to maybe personalize our solution with regard to the different markets and sectorial regulations that are existing. Now, when it comes to accessibility, we usually talk about design for all or universal design, and there are good standards there, like the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Now, for us, I think we can do even better. We should design for all, but on top of that, we can do more by providing personalized solutions to users that they can even configure things that work better for them in this way. There are actually standards that describe how you can specify user preferences in user profiles that provide formats and vocabularies for that. And you find these are ISO, IEC standards. You'll find them if you look into the guidelines. Then 3.5 uses standardized format and vocabulary for describing resources and components of user interfaces. So if you use a system like that has alternative sets of icons, then these icons may be somewhere provided as resources, and it's important that you describe these resources with metadata in a way that they're easily discoverable by search engines. And there are standards for that as well. The fourth set of guidelines is about privacy and security, very important aspects. First, make your solution private and secure. Private means that you protect the user's privacy. And second, secure means that you protect your user from harm. So encryption, anonymization, those are means to achieve that. And it's important to explain to the user what data are collected by your solution and how you're going to use it and how this benefits the user. So make the case why you're doing this and convince the user that this is necessary so that they understand why they need to consent to this. For some users, it's intimidating to have so many choices about privacy and uploading data to the cloud, and so allow the user to control their privacy settings in a usable manner. One of the ways of doing that is to provide them with like a set of predefined settings that they can choose from on a range of different options, but not too many options, because then it's easier for them to pick one and understand the consequences. Also, of course, we need to have users provide their consent to the data collection, even if you just collect anonymously, and of course follow the data protection guidelines defined by the European Union. Now, the last set of guidelines is about business modeling. Of course, it's important to have a good business model for your solutions. So consider developing multiple business models that are personalized for different user groups. So you may need to really consider the different needs and wishes, and maybe also economic situation of different users. And then if you design your business model, do so in a structured and systematic manner. For example, use tools like Business Model Canvas or other tools that are widely established. There are many stakeholders involved in purchasing and using the product, and you should consider them all in your processes. and in your making of your business models. And that includes buyers, payers, users, prescribers, and service providers. And they have different interests, and you should look at all of them. Also, some people may have more money than others, and it's important to make your solutions affordable for each of the user groups, and think about ways that how they can finance your solution, and that also depends on the support of insurances and regulations in different areas. And the last guideline is about using mainstream technologies as much as possible. Don't you make your own solutions if there is something that you can use already existing. This will help you for economic sustainability and easy replacement and updates of your hardware and your software. This also includes that you're using hardware that's existing rather than building your own hardware if that's possible. So these were the 34 guidelines that we've compiled for you. I want to acknowledge the editors and coordinators that have made this possible, together with the PUX working group of EIP-AHA, and also the content contributors that provided the content for these guidelines. Thank you for your attention.